Hello, thank you very much for joining me on the Lavigne Show with a very special episode as we got three travelers that came all the way out to Alberta to have a conversation with me. And who are they? We've got Paul Derry, Chris Williams, and Rob Sidhu. They're out here to have a conversation about their new podcast, because their new podcast, Obscene Reality, you can find it out obscenereality.com. It's going to be an excellent podcast breaking down informants, agents, Ex-RCMP, and even criminals. Let's go ahead and have a conversation with these gentlemen. Hello, Chris. How are you doing?
Good to be here.
Thank you very much for being here. And then we got Paul and Rob. Thank you very much for joining me, gentlemen.
Pleasure's almost.
So let's go ahead and have a conversation. You have a new podcast. So we met you on my show. You came on one time. We did a remote. And then we actually got to meet in person at a hotel. What have you been up to lately?
Since the last time I saw you, we put together a podcast, this one, obviously. And we joined together, out of a common desire for the Justice Department to be, our justice system to be better than it was, the RCMP to be better than it was, better than it is. I know we like to think that there's some kind of nostalgic thing to go back to, but there's always been some deep-rooted rot in there, some systemic issues. And so out of that common desire to see it be the best it could be for a national police force, we decided we wanted to do something about it. We were all doing our own individual thing, and we decided to join forces and do something more productive, or maybe be more of the force. And that branched out into even more than just the RCMP, more than just our combined experiences in their source handling experiences, mine and Rob's criminal experience and background, and then obviously the policing. We looked at the whole justice system, Correctional Service of Canada, civil suits, what's going on in civil courts, what's going on in criminal courts, and how can we fix all of these things, or at least make a difference in some of these things. So that's what brought us together, a common desire to do that, and a common faith, as Christians. And that's so we've been focused. I've been focusing all my energy on this going forward, as well as looking at doing feature film documentary. So,
is your goal to get information out, to kind of satisfy your past, kind of bring things forward, or try and improve the future?
I would like to see the system be beneficial and seek truth. Justice system should be about seeking truth. I want to see it get to what it should be, and that is seek truth, not lawfare, not legal gymnastics. I want to see it be what it should be about. For the average person, it's one thing for people who have been in and around the system that know a little bit more of what it's really like. But what about, mom and pop that end up in a position where they're in a civil suit or a criminal suit for whatever criminal, situation, that don't know anything? Or what about the people that don't have the information? It's not only daunting, but it's an unfair system. It's not really want to focus on the DOJ and their dual. It's not goals of both creating the fairness of the system and then defending those that are being accused, usually in the government. So if Correctional Service of Canada is being sued, DOJ sets the rules, and they also protect them and defend them. It's not with the RCMP. Well, how is that? How do you see that as fair? How does a common person look at that, a lay person, and go, well, that seems fair? It's not. So that's some of the stuff we want to look at.
From the outside, we always have these issues with the police, because we always consider the police, either you're really for the police or you're against them. There's very little middle ground there. Is this a trust issue? Is it a understanding of what the work is? Because one of the things we spoke about was, transparency and accountability. And you said you can't really be transparent. This is one of the things that you were kind of highlighting. Transparency is tough because some of the work is very difficult, but accountability is still something that we should be pushing for. Would you agree with that?
I don't know what these guys think about that, because I don't think we've had a discussion about it. I'm very much against transparency. I want accountability, I think transparency in policing hurts policing. I think accountability is needed. Transparency, I mean, we can just see that in how public opinion sways cases. And if you don't, and I think I used the example before, a high-risk takedown, and these guys can speak to that more than I can. But, well, I mean, I've been in them. I'm usually being taken down, but in a high-risk takedown, if you get a clip of that, it looks very violent. But that's for the safety of the officers, the person being taken down. It's to, overwhelm them, take them down quick. Well, to the public, when they see it, it can seem very abusive. And it's just not. It's just normal, good, safe, methods of taking down a bad guy real quick. And it's needed. And so transparency doesn't work when we're showing videos like that and saying this is what police do. In fact, it has an opposite effect. It causes people to hate the police and not trust the police. So, no, we need accountability. We don't need to be having everything under the microscope. I'm not saying it can't be some of that, but I mean, I think they're better to speak on the policing aspect.
Rob, what are your position? I used to be former RCMP, and then you came to the other side. And what's your position on going for transparency?
I think it's operational necessity that dictates transparency. I agree with Paul. There are some aspects of policing that inherently require some form of covert abilities. Undercover operations, which I'm familiar with, is one aspect of that. So, yeah, I mean, but again, accountability, there has to be a balance somewhere. So it's a difficult thing moving forward, but somewhere along the line, there has to be some form of balance that, mitigates public opinions of mistrust. And, but on the other side of it, you also want to support the members in the work that they're doing. So I think what we want to do is help find that balance in some way, shape, or form. And through some of our experiences, I think that we could shed light on how policing could be conducted in a more proficient manner.
So, Chris, how do we find that balance then?
I agree completely with what both of them are saying. I'm a little bit more on the, I think there needs to be a little bit more accountability rather than less. I think the most important thing in the RCMP, we had the core mission, vision, values of the RCMP were honesty, integrity, professionalism, caring, respect. They've removed honesty, interestingly, from the RCMP core values. How honesty gets removed, I don't know. But I think for all of us, we're very supportive of members that we know. There's a lot of good police officers out there. And I think what's happened is the system's been handcuffed by lawfare. And that involves the Department of Justice. And as Paul very aptly said, what's happening is we have the Department of Justice advising the RCMP on how to conduct themselves, even with their own members, where you have internal issues, whether it's an internal complaint or it's a grievance or appeal process. There's either internal lawyers, such as the RCMP National Advisory Services, that is basically a risk mitigation group within the RCMP, often working hand in hand with Department of Justice lawyers in Ottawa. They're providing the advice to the RCMP, and then when it becomes a protracted legal issue, a lawfare issue, they're also the ones then defending the actions. So it becomes very difficult, where I think there's solutions that are and remedies to people that are easily available. Those get missed, and we miss the opportunity to sit down and have honest conversations that ensure accountability. And my experience, certainly in helping members through internal grievance and appeals processes, helping some people with public complaints, with trying to get answers via the ATIP, access to information process, freedom of information process, has been that what's missing is the accountability to some degree, but the honesty. And I'm really hoping that through some honest conversations, open conversations, that we can get back to kind of, the RCMP can get back on track with respect to that, because I think that's what builds public trust.
Yeah. they're going to be difficult conversations indeed, but we're here because we want to sort of, we've seen in behind the curtain, so we know what takes place behind the scenes, and a lot of it is institutional protectionism. And I think that if the RCMP was able to get behind a purpose as opposed to an ideology, get behind the members as opposed to the institution itself, it would serve the members and the general public much better.
How would you separate the roles? Because Attorney General and the Minister of Justice usually the same person, federal and provincial level as well. Would that be something that you would take a look at?
Yeah, I mean, these are some of the issues that we have been discussing, and there has to be some sort of compartmentalization or separation. And I think that that's what Paul was referring to earlier. I mean, you have the DOJ acting as the lawyers for the RCMP, and it becomes this protracted issue where lawfare. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. They just bombard you with documents after documents, filings after filings. And so, if there was a separate body that was able to look after these things as opposed to having the DOJ do it, that would be ideal. It would be an ideal to have just a separate institution that would examine all of these aspects, retractions, work filings, but that's not what we have today. What we have is a institution that basically oversees the investigation or a court proceeding, and the RCMP dictates what they're going to release, and the DOJ is there to defend them. So there's no fairness in it at this point. We just won't.
What about appeals and things like that? Because I've noticed that once you go through court, appeals is the next stage. Is there room for a citizen level at all for accountability or grand juries or anything like that?
I don't know whether the grand jury system is the appropriate mechanism for handling that. But an independent body of some sort that is legislated and overseen, I think that would be the appropriate mechanism for that.
Provincially, with the provinces in Alberta, I believe you have ACERT. In British Columbia, we've got, I'm forgetting the name of the body, but we've got independent bodies that look at where there's death or harm that comes to someone, a civilian, via the police. What there isn't is, in terms of internal conflict or a civilian complaint, like a public complaint that's not criminal, that's dealt with by the Civilian Review and Complaints Commission. That even last week there was some press on how broken that system is. It just simply doesn't provide remedy. And I think that's the biggest thing, that whether it's, again, internal or a public complaint, the remedy's so protracted, so hard to get to, the most people become discouraged and they just give up. And that includes members themselves that are in the force. I think that's the biggest betrayal that I've seen a lot of members experience as well. I grew up in the RCMP. From the time I was born, my dad was a member of the RCMP until I joined. My father then subsequently passed away, but my sister was a member. It's all I had known all my life. And for me, there was real indoctrination into the family of the RCMP. And they're still teaching that to cadets even now, that when you join, it's a family. That's great in rhetoric, but it's not the reality. And unfortunately, when you get into any kind of workplace conflict in terms of the RCMP, or people have a complaint, it becomes very quickly a lawfare process if the organization is being protected. And that's what we've discussed. It's not about the individuals, and we can talk about compassion and mental health issues and what we should be doing. When it comes to protecting the buffalo, is kind of the term that's used, or the big red machine, unfortunately becomes lawfare. And I think that that's just something that's so easily remedied. and could be such a course correction for the RCMP. And that's something that we're really hoping will happen, that people take the time to listen to what we have to say. Having the experience that we have, you won't find three guys with the level and the depth and breadth of experience that we have, having done what we've done. And we're offering some solutions that really we've been begging people for a long time to sit down and talk to us about. They're unwilling to do it because of the Lawfare. And now we're in a position where we're going to try to have these positive conversations, not to pin anybody to the board or hang anybody in the town square, so to speak, but to try to invoke some positive change, and some people may be sitting back and going, there is a better way to do this. And let's explore that. And I think humility in leadership would go a long way to accomplishing that. But my belief is the DOJ is who's in the middle there, and these internal lawyers with groups like National Advisory Services that are the barrier to those conversations happening. And I just really hope that through these conversations we can get back to that.
I think that's the key. The key, and that is honesty, humility. You know, let's see some of this come to the table. We're not looking to be bitter. None of us are sitting here in bitterness, or nor have we been. We're just looking at it and saying, hey, some common sense here. Like, you know, if I do something wrong, and I've said this often, when I did something wrong, I went to court, I pled guilty, I admitted I did something wrong, I paid restitution, you know, whether it be punitive with prison or both money and that to my victims. And there was remedy, and then there was change. So we're asking for the same thing from the system that enforces that. How about when you make a mistake, have a little humility, admit that you made a mistake. Nobody's perfect. We don't expect institutions to be perfect. They're run by people. Well, we're not foolish, but we expect you to own up to your mistakes, be humble, remedy them, and change. And we've seen time after time after time, no matter what you look at, whether it be the Nova Scotia incident, whether you see Marinthorpe, wherever you see that there's been so many times that leadership has had a chance to change, and they haven't. And when you listen to guys like some of their stories, and even what Chris is saying right now, if they'll throw their own members under the bus, what chance does someone like me, who is an agent, who is outside the force, who comes in, and now I'm going to go into a witness protection program? Well, boy, I bet I'm going to be real safe. If they can't take care of their own members, if they don't care enough about them to take care of them, how could I ever feel safe? You know, and if we bring the wrongs, and they're truly wrongs, if somebody's done wrong, you know, well, let's seek the truth about that. You know, in my case, we know I've been in litigation for a long time, 6 years now, against the RCMP. I've never once said that I'm not willing to accept anybody saying that what my narrative, my version of what I've seen happen and what I remember. I'm not saying that I can't be wrong. I'm a human being too. I have my own bias, you know, and so shouldn't we seek truth? Shouldn't it be the truth? Why do we hide? Why does the DOJ have to hide everything rather than just seek truth? I understand hiding means and methods. Nobody here wants to give up means and methods or you know, put people's lives in danger. Nobody wants to tell secrets just to be mean and vindictive, or we're not stupid. We've all lived there. We've all been under the gun. We've all been in a place where our security, our lives depended on what we were doing and the secrecy in what we were doing. So we're not trying to go out and do something stupid. We're just trying to say, hey, practice what you preach. Rob says often, just preach it, you know.
Yeah.
If you preach it, I mean, walk it.
Yeah. Don't talk about it, be about it.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Like, unless do as I say and not as I do, right? So it's like, I'm going to echo the statements of both of these guys. We're not here to disparage the force or the DOJ. We just want to find a mechanism where we're not better, right? And I think that having difficult conversations like this is the first step to that. We're not. So we put it all out there. My experience in the RCMP whatever we can do to assist in moving discussions forward, we're not the force will move itself from an ideological based leadership, institutional protectionism profile to one that has a purpose for the public and purpose for its members as well. See, there's a lot of members out there that are being thrown into the bus, really have no recourse whatsoever, or don't understand what to do next. So we want to see the force do better for its people as well, not just the general public. And in order to do that, they have to put aside the optics and lead with a purpose as opposed to an ideology.
I think very aptly, the issue is natural justice. At the end of the day, there has to be, if you look at the rules of natural justice, there has to be remedy for people who are experiencing issues via natural justice. And if you look at those laws of natural justice, unfortunately, the system that we have right now does not afford for a remedy. And I think that is the number one issue. We saw where it affected lower ranking members of the force for a long time. What we're seeing now is you're seeing higher and higher ranking members that are being affected by what's perceived as a lack of accountability and a lack of honesty. We saw that recently with the CO of F Division, who was removed from her position there. And notwithstanding the request from, I believe it was First Nations in Saskatchewan, there seems to be no accountability from the RCMP commissioner. There's no honest conversations around that. And we're seeing a lot of high-ranking officers now supporting her and coming around her and saying, this kind of system does not work. It will not instill confidence from the membership in management and in the higher ranks of the RCMP. We're seeing it through several other cases that are ongoing right now that are before the courts. I don't know if you've been following at all the Bill Miker case, former member who was arrested and is right now on release with conditions. But there's a lot of cases that we're aware of as a group and through our contacts that are starting to bubble up through the courts where there's serious questions with regards to honesty and accountability from the Department of Justice. And again, I don't know necessarily that that's the RCMP, but it's a systemic thing that needs to be addressed and needs to be fixed.
I think for sure it's a systemic thing. And I think, he's right. We're going to have these honest conversations. And I think to remember too, the guests that we have come on are people that are from some of these cases that he's talking about, people that are going to come on and expose things that, and not for the bitterness. Like, we won't have somebody on if they're just bitter. I'm not having people on a show and we've all agreed to some parameters. We're not having people come on just to gripe and complain. We'll allow people to come on and share if they've got something productive. We don't want to just sit here and complain. We know there's a systemic issue. It's getting worse. As he said, throwing Rhonda Blackmore under the bus. I'm sorry, but that's insane. She's an assistant commissioner.
Well respected.
Both in public and among members, and what they're doing to her is terrible. On top of that, I mean, in my own case, in my own litigation, I can't get into the details, but I can assure you they just threw a deputy commissioner under the bus, and they have no issue with it. Anything to win. That's lawfare. That's not seeking truth. And that's my big complaint is obviously I'm all about truth. If I'm wrong,
good, bad, or ugly.
Yeah, I don't care what the truth is. I'm all about truth, and they don't always like that. I don't always like it because a lot of times I find out I'm the one in the wrong. But I'll admit it. I'm not, and I think he struck on that, the humility. NHQ needs to start humbling themselves and understanding they need to be servant leaders. They're not there to overlord. They're there to be servant leaders, and they need to serve the force, serve the public, serve the good. That's not happening. That's not happening in corrections. That's not happening in the court system. So what do we do to solve that? Well, humility is a great start. Little bit of humility. Admit where the wrongs are. Admit where the cracks are. Listen to the people who have lived experience. Why did Rob leave the RCMP? And when he left the RCMP, how did he gravitate to, being one of the largest drug importers in the country? How did Chris ended up leaving a family, a generational family of RCMP members, which he loves very much, being a part of this family. Was, he calls it indoctrination. I'm sure that it was a beautiful thing to grow up in a family of RCMP officers. Like, why did these things change? How did I end up going into the position I ended up in, witness protection? Why am I stepping out of the protection of, where people that want to kill me could, just to speak truth? There's no gain in it for me. If whatever, we all know litigation here. Litigation certainly doesn't pay off for anybody in the long run. I know everybody loves to think lawsuits are, I'm going to sue you. Listen, litigations are draining. They drain resources. They drain time. They drain everything out of your mental state. And they play on that. And that's the game. The DOJ plays on that, and some of us can persevere through it.
Not many.
And I don't know how some people. I feel for some people. I've seen some members that we've talked to, and that we know personally. Some not only didn't come through it, they ate a bullet because they couldn't make it through.
I'll give you an example, the medical discharge process in the RCMP. So when you're deemed permanently disabled, a permanent 06, as they call it, basically your career is over. And there's supposed to be a mechanism through the RCMP Office of Coordination of Grievances and Appeals to be able to do a grievance, to do an appeal. They're not even waiting for the grievance to come through on the designation, and they're discharging members. Yeah. It's not being done in good faith. And it's being done repeatedly, despite being told, like, you're affecting members, you're causing members to have mental breakdowns. There's all kinds of things that are going on. I think the number one thing for all three of us, again, you said it. If we could walk away from it or not be involved, our life energy would be much better spent. Mine certainly, doing other things. But I think the reason we're doing it, altruistic, believe it or not, is we don't want to see these things happen to other people. We want to improve the system. And we are the best positioned people to provide that because we actually have the on-the-ground experience in the trenches, as opposed to the administrators sometimes who are making these decisions, who are so far removed from operational policing and the heartbeat of what's actually going on.
Exactly. Yeah.
They're away from the humanity of it. I think that's the biggest thing, is they don't see the humanity of it. In an email I wrote to somebody today that was high up at HQ, I contrasted the brokenness of my family to the position they were in. Like, do you see the humanity of this? I get the decision making. I get you're protecting the optics. I get why you do the things you do. I see the career moves. I get all of that stuff. But do you not see the expense, that the cost that comes with that to others? How do you look at yourself in the mirror knowing that for this, you walked over all of these people? Do you not look behind you and see the people who have committed suicide? Do you not see the people that did give up? No, you see us who are still trying to persevere, and you're trying to push us to the same place. And that may sound overly dramatic or even like I'm griping in a way that I'm bitter about it. I'm not. I'm sharing a reality. There's an emotional toll this takes on people, and it breaks my heart to see the people that go through it. I got a wonderful, supportive community of people around me. I get to, and I'm blessed to have the resources to keep this fight going. So far, I've been very blessed in that, and so I have somewhere to turn to. Not everybody does. I'm able to help others. Not everybody has people to help them, so that needs to change. They need to see the humanity in it. They need to stop looking at everything, as my daughter said not too long ago, I'm not just a case file.
Sadly, the risk aversity, I think, is a huge part of it. And again, the lawyer's advising. A lot of these things could be solved with a proper sit down, face-to-face, someone looking you in the whites of the eyes. And I've sat down with many officers who have said, what happened to you is wrong. What's happened to this person is wrong. I had an offer made to me. I had an offer, a package of $500,000 package to leave the RCMP. They reneged on that and then buried it. And that's the problem. It's the lack of honesty in that, and it's the lack of willingness of someone to just come to me and sit down and resolve it. Instead, they'd rather go through years and years worth of lawfare at an extreme cost, not only financially and in terms of human resources, but the cost to the reputation of the organization is almost beyond. And you would think that there would be a willingness to recognize that. And I don't know whether it's ignorance or hubris, excessive pride, but there just seems to be a lack of ability to do that. And again, I'm not pointing fingers at any specific person. I think it, even in the Blackmore situation, why doesn't somebody just come out and tell it like it is? Doesn't someone explain why Rhonda got removed?
Yeah,
Instead, they would allow this to continue to percolate and at detriment to the organization. And none of us want to see that. I was a very proud member of the RCMP. My dad did 33 years. I served honorably for almost 24 years and was very fortunate to have an amazing career. I worked in Southeast Asia. I worked in the far north in Nunavut. I worked in Saskatchewan. I was a dog handler, an undercover operator, a source handler, attached to ERT teams, went to Summit of the Americas in Quebec. There's not a lot that I didn't do. I had a great career. But at the end of my career, I was soured very quickly by deceptive people that didn't want to just sit down and have a conversation. And it was that family betrayal that's led me to sticking this out to fight for other people. And I'm willing to stand there so that doesn't happen to somebody else. And I'm willing to forgive and move on. And that's the only opportunity I'm looking for out of what we're doing, is to prevent this from happening to other people and maybe get some form of closure for ourselves. Although, like I said, I don't need anybody hung in the town square.
Right.
Well, did you feel that way because your $500 package didn't go through, or was something else that led to that betrayal feeling?
No, I think it was the lack of honesty and integrity, and then the effort to cover it up since then. Like, people make mistakes. The package that they offered me, they reneged on. The two people that offered me the package, high-ranking officers, were removed from their job almost immediately. One, an assistant commissioner, never came back to work. Herself was pushed out of the force after being off for an extended period of time. But I said, listen, people make mistakes. I'm not looking to hang them. I, as a matter of fact, said I'm not prepared to even make a complaint against them. Let's just have a conversation and have me exit in a way that's dignified to myself based on what you've admitted to. And that's been, with me, the situation that they've tried to cover that up for almost 7 years now. Not only that, but they've tried to run other members out of the force based on, again, a system that just doesn't offer the ability to grieve or appeal a decision fairly. And it's lawfare. And then these things will drag on for years.
6 years. I've been in litigation.
And that's because of the broken system. The Civilian Review and Complaints Commission, same thing. If you make a complaint, those will often drag out for years. And we know the chair of the CRCC has been removed from her job. The former chair before her had massive issues. It's a system that I think what's happening is we're seeing people promoted to the top positions there that just don't have the intestinal fortitude to sit down and have these conversations, because literally it would save so much time and energy, and it would be overdone with.
It could just be a conversation. And I think here they shoot their wounded, and I think Rob's a perfect example of that. Rob makes no excuses for what he ended up doing. He gives reasons, and I think if they listen to those reasons, they'd understand that, this is going to happen more. If you keep shooting your wounded, you can't take people when they're down and crush them and then think that some aren't going to turn against you. It's no different than a dog. You keep beating it long enough, eventually it's going to turn on you. And I'll let Rob speak for himself when it comes to his story, but from my perspective, knowing Rob's story, and like I said, he owns everything that, me and Rob are very unlikely people to be together today. For a number of reasons, just obviously. But he has very valid reasons that he can give that will make a difference to others as we go forward in this trying to change things.
Well, let's jump into that one, Rob. What got you into your second career? Like, why?
Yeah, sure.
Force?
Sure. So again, it goes back to what Chris said. When you go to depot, you are told that you're part of a larger family. And for me, I had extensive experience in undercover operations, and I basically tied my identity to being an undercover operative. And I don't mind telling you, I did very well at that in that position. I was severely injured in an undercover operation in Toronto, and through no fault of my own, I and back and was advised that basically you're suspended from the program until you get your head straight. So
Is that because you were too far into it? Like you're having trouble with the line, or what did they mean by your head straight?
well, basically the debriefing that came back faulted me for my injuries.
On the job interview?
On the job, yeah. I was beaten severely during the course of an operation. And it wasn't any fault of my own. I get into details in an upcoming book. But basically for me, I felt betrayed. I felt like they threw me under the bus. And that led me, I was diagnosed with PTSD. They basically said, all right, you've been diagnosed. We don't know what to do with you. We're going to suspend you until you get your head straight. That's what I was told by the coordinator's office. So when that's all I had known, and I excelled in that position. So for me, it was crushing. I didn't know what to do with myself. And ultimately, the PTSD led me to, all sorts of bizarre behavior. And eventually what happened is leaving the force. I retired on a medical pension. And I had an expertise. And I also had a lot of friends that I grew up with that were now high-ranking members of the Hells Angels. So they approached me and they said, listen, you have a skill, you could help us. And I own this. My actions were maligned. I never should have gotten involved with them, but I did. And I did it because I felt betrayed by the force. I felt this was my way of getting back at them. And I did. For 10 years, I ran amok. There wasn't much that they could do with me. I understood the law. I understood undercover operations. They tried on occasion to have an operator infiltrate my circle. That wasn't successful.
You were able to identify that right away?
Immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately. Ultimately, what happened is I was indicted out of the United States and ultimately extradited. But when I think back at my experience, had somebody just sat down with me and said, look, Rob, you've been through a lot. We're here for you. Let's help you navigate through this. I think I would have been able to salvage my career. But instead, I was just
Which career?
in the RCMP. But I think what
Which one paid better?
yeah yeah. So what I want to do now is provoke discussion within the RCMP, because I guarantee you there are other members out there similarly situated that feel betrayed, that feel that the force just isn't standing behind them. And I want them to sort of look at my experience and say, look, maybe if we had just done a few things for this guy, things would have turned out differently. And that's what we're trying to do here. I don't have any issue with the mission or the badge. My issue is with the institution. It needs to lead with a purpose. And I keep saying this. The ideology of protecting the optics, the institutional protectionism, that has to go. And if that is done, you'll find members' morale will be increased, and the public will it'll be better served to the public. It's right now what you're seeing with all of these different aspects of high-ranking officers being shifted without any sort of explanation. The general public looks at that and says, well, why isn't the commissioner coming out and speaking to this? So there's a lot of skepticism in the general public as well. But my story is just one of where I am basically in a position to say to the force, you know, like, I don't want to see another member go through what I went through. I'd like to see mental health advocacy within the force. I'd like to see the force get behind their members, as opposed to saying, you know what, let this guy twist in the wind for a little while and he's just going to fall off the radar. That's basically what they did with me. So, and again, I own what I did. I take full responsibility for it. It wasn't right. My actions were maligned, but I felt betrayed. And had I just been given the appropriate counseling, or just had like a senior member come to me and say, instead of saying to me, we're going to put you on the shelf until you get your head straight, somebody could have just sat down with me and talked to me and said, let's help you navigate through this. But instead, I went down a downward spiral that ultimately ended up doing 7 years in prison in the United States.
God bless you for your journey, because what you're trying to do right now is help others.
I am, yes, absolutely. That's, that's all three of our purposes. We want to see the force do better. And we're saying, look at our examples and take from it what you will. But I guarantee you there's other members that are similarly situated that are too afraid to reach out for help because they feel that their careers will be derailed. Okay. So,
Rob's an extreme example in terms of the level of misconduct that he went to. He makes no apology for well, he does make apology, but there's
makes no excuse.
No excuse for what he did, and he ended up betraying the force.
Yeah.
But that's the reality. The unfortunate thing is the force should have learned a lesson from that. And what I've seen up until very recently, including very recently, there's still undercover operators in the program that aren't having the proper supports as their long-term undercover operators. I know of an example from June where a guy had a conduct hearing scheduled. He was charged criminally and had a code of conduct. It all kind of disappeared and was swept under the rug. Whether he's still in the RCMP, I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's been many, many, many examples that I could give you. I'm not going to name names, but of people falling off the rails in that undercover program.
Right.
And it gets back to the mental health thing. The RCMP espouses that they've got these safeguards in place and that mental health is such a priority, and they do the Bell Talk Day and all this stuff. This was all stuff I was talking about prior to my discharge through 2017, 18, and into 19, was that despite the rhetoric, that wasn't the reality, and we were missing the boat with respect to proper support for members. Unfortunately, none of that's changed. And that's, again, like, for lessons learned, like, somebody at some point needs to say, but people need to show a little humility and maybe talk to these guys, because there is no one better positioned to give good advice to the Department of Justice and the RCMP on recruiting sources and on recruiting agents and how you handle families, on how you keep undercover operators in the lines long term when they're doing these difficult jobs, and they're difficult jobs and it's honorable. But guys sometimes forget the reality of who they really are, and that you're a policeman first, and those lines are easy to become blurred. I was an undercover operator. I know, again, the challenges that are there. So I think, again, if someone would take the time to speak to these guys about that with me regarding mental health and how we can help these members, and not kick members out of the RCMP for disabilities, on the job injuries with their head, down, not knowing what they're going to do to put food on the table for their family. Instead, let's have a better plan of how we can help people. And you're going to get some people back to work, not everyone. Some people are going to have to leave, but let's help them do it with dignity.
Yeah.
I think, again, it comes back to the humanity, right? Here's two source handlers. They both handled sources. I'm a source. I was an agent. I've done the work. They know how hard it is to deal with people like me. They're not, you know, I'm a hard guy to deal with back then. I mean, I'm a different person today, but I might still ask my wife. She might say I'm still hard to deal with, and they'll probably agree with you that she has a hard time dealing with me. But you know, it's the humanity that they get to see firsthand. It's not just because he made a mistake or he went through those things. As source handlers, they dealt with the human aspect on the street all the time. They dealt with the going in and breaking bread with a family and then having to arrest that same family target, the head of that family, say.
Yeah.
So, and there's lots of people that are going through that. Those things play on you, but at the same time, they give you an eye into the humanity of the things that are going on. And likewise for me, from a source perspective, as I've met handlers over my life and different cops, and, you know, obviously 19 years of testifying in murder trials, I've been babysat by many police officers, and heard lots of shop talk and problems, and I have all the same issues as all of us in society, but I've seen the humanity in them. And that's all we're trying to say here is, like, you know, in my family, and I always liken this, I tell these guys all the time, in my family, it's very simple to me. You know, we have honesty, and we reward good behavior, and we punish bad behavior, but we try to talk through it. You know, we don't accept lies. You know, I don't teach my kids to, you know, be disrespectful. I teach my kids to respect and honor, you know, laws and such, and take accountability for their actions. The same, I'm sure, that every one of us here teaches our children when we're raising them. Well, all the forces, all the everything out there is just macro. It's just the same thing. Shouldn't we just teach people what we're trying to teach our kids? Shouldn't they be exemplifying that? Shouldn't they be putting that on display? And my child, and I tell him, oh, you should look up to the, you know, RCMP. They're the good guys. Well, then shouldn't they see the good guys when they make a mistake, own it, and fix it, and take and remedy it, and make the changes? Isn't that what they should see? I mean, if not, it makes it very difficult for me in my home to tell my kids that's the good guys.
When they're dragging you through years and years of
litigation,
litigation that's unnecessary at Lawfare, and
absolutely unnecessary. And the truth is, and these guys know it, and whether they'll ever admit it or not is irrelevant to me. I came to them for help in 2019. I had a breakdown, was going to put an axe through my wife's head, and I mean, I was 19 years of murder trials. I was in a bad place. I didn't know what was going on. It scared me that my thoughts were so screwed up. I didn't know why I was having them. I didn't know why I was having anger outbursts. I knew nothing about PTSD or anything. Nobody had ever told me anything. All this stuff came to a head, and I reached out and just asked for help. All I asked them for was a little bit of help. Nothing compared to what I'm asking now that I've been in 6 years of litigation. Now I'm looking for you to change the system completely. Before, I just wanted a little bit of help to be, you know, and it's not even just me. I asked for help for my children. Screw me. Shoot me like shoot the rest of the wounded you do. But you can't take and help the children? You aren't even, you know, honorable enough to say there's collateral damage here. There's children in these families that you're dealing with. Whether that be a family member, because, you know, the same thing, they still have kids, they still have to go through a lot of the same mental anguish, and they're going through things. Help the kids, do something.
I think Rob and I both, our children became collateral damage to what happened to us too.
100%.
It's the number one, Jason, for me, I'll tell you, it's the number one shame that I deal with is what the career did to my son. And I accept the weight of that. It's on me. That's on me.
Yeah.
That's on me not handling it properly. But also now when I started to advocate for change and for the system to be better and for help and how can we improve this, that's where I think they bear an obligation to do something. And there's nothing I can do to change what happened, but should my son join the RCMP, should any of your kids or anyone else, I don't want to see this happen to them, and I want them to be able to have the help if they need it. And that's ultimately, again, like I can't change what's happened with me, but I can try to make amends to some degree by helping others and changing the system. I could also just walk away and do my own thing, but to me, there's just a piece of me. I still care enough about the organization. I still care enough about the people that are in it. And I think it's still good enough, and there's good enough people there that I think that change is possible. And that's what I'm hoping for through this process.
Yeah, I would echo those statements. Like it just, there's a lot of really, really decent people that go to work with integrity and honor and stand behind what they do. We just want to see leadership honor that. That's what's important to us. That's not happening right now.
I see a lot of selflessness here between the three of you. You're putting your own resources on the table to do this. There is no payoff other than change. So what you're looking for is change.
Correct.
Whether it's for the next generation, anybody that was injured along the way, or anybody that's suffering right now silently as they're going through it as well. Right. Whether they're a member, somebody working with the members, or just the general public. There's a lot of people hurting. So what's guiding you? Do you have something that's guiding you? Because I heard you talk about faith a bit there, Rob.
Yeah. Listen, going to prison really changed me. It humbled me. And when I came out, I could have went right back to what I was doing. But something happened inside, and I started to lean more towards my faith. But in doing so, I continued on my release. I began to really get into my faith further. And it was a transformative thing for me. And one of the things I felt I needed to do was to tell my story. A lot of people don't know what happened to me. As recently as a few days ago, I think I asked Chris, what did people think happened to me? And he said, well, people just thought you kind of went off the rails. And so in doing all of that and getting deeper into my faith, I felt the need to come forward and just sort of confess what I did, but clear what I did, but also not hold back on some of the aspects that we've discussed today in terms of change. And that all happened because of my faith. So it's been an incredible journey for me. I suffered, but I took responsibility for what I did. And coming out of all of that, if it wasn't for my faith, I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today.
So I'd say that the tie that binds us, truly binds us, is the faith in God. It's not a spiritual thing. It's not a faith in ourselves. It's a compass that's focused on God, our faith in Christ. And I think that is what has really tied us together, because the principles of Christ, Paul speaks very eloquently about it, but that truly is what guides our motivation. We try to hold each other accountable and to be humble and not let our egos go. And I think that's a very important thing as we're on this journey. We're not here for our own glory. We're here to make things better and to do what humble ourselves and be servants of society, which we all signed up to do in the various things that we did, and serve and not put ourselves first. And I think it's a very I'm very thankful that these men have opened themselves up to me. And I would just say that I think the faith is what really binds us together beyond anything else.
I think I made it very clear on the last show, and off the show, I'm a diehard believer in Christ, and you know what, I've been a Christian for 25 years now. The proof is in the pudding for me. I don't need to. I'm not God's salesman. None of us are running around beating people over the head with the Bible. That's not what we're here about. But we want to display Christ-like behavior, and in the sense that we want to glorify God in all that we do. So, and we do want to hold each other accountable for that reason. As a Christian, my desire is that God get all the glory, which means I have to die to self. And I think when you say selflessness, it's not because I'm very good at it. It's because I don't know anything else. I only know how to. I'm so far in and so far along now that Christ is the only answer for me in that sense. Like, I know the truth is in the Word. I know that my moral compass is in the truth of the Word. I don't have to be smart. In fact, the Bible says, he uses the foolish to confound the wise. Well, and Paul said that of sinners I am chief. Well, Paul says, of sinners I am chief, and I also know I'm a fool. And if I'm a fool for Christ and it offends people, it's fine with me. I'm okay with that. But it is also what guides my moral, my integrity is to that moral compass. And so, therefore, it really doesn't matter what my opinion is. What matters is, every day, do I get up and persevere in glorifying Him? And that means being an example of truth. And all of the things we're doing, obviously Chris and I and Rob and I and Chris and I, we all want to speak at churches and share our stories and share our testimonies and do that as Christians. But outside of our Christian walk, and not that secular and spiritual get divided so much, but there is an aspect that, Christians do go to work. Well, this is us going to work, but we bring Christ with us in that. It doesn't mean, like I said, we're going along. We're not, we haven't lost our minds, and I laugh a little bit about this, but in the RCMP, when I first said I was a Christian, back when I changed my life, I got mocked over and over and over, and I get it. It seems foolish to many. I guess that's why God said He uses the foolish to confound the wise. Mm-hmm. But God has also provided and had me persevere through all of this, because I couldn't have done it without Him. I wouldn't even have known how to do it. Wouldn't have had a desire. Look, I had a desire to go back to the world and live the world I lived in. I didn't change me. I did nothing. I got up every day and read my Bible, and when I got convicted, I acted on that conviction, and when I made wrongs, I owned up to them. That's all I'm saying about the RCMP.
Well, doing podcasts is a nice way to get out there, but do understand that when you go out there and speak, and I'm sure you already know this, you're going to get a lot of attention, and some of that's not going to be positive attention. Yeah. So you have to be courageous. So you're using your faith to keep up a shield, I guess. Would you say that, Rob?
No, that's fine. I mean, we anticipate that. We come from very, diverse backgrounds, to say the least. And, I expect the skepticism, right? But those people out there haven't walked through our journeys. And that's the important aspect of this. We've gone through it, and we've come out of it. And we've come out of it for a reason. And that reason is God.
And I think just to further that, I don't think that Rob just called me up one day and I just said, hey, let's go meet. This is a guy that was at the top of the Hells Angels importing drugs, and I have a hit out on me by the Hells Angels. Only God could put that together. Yeah. And then for Chris to come in, how did this come together? We could never have dreamed up this together. We could never have made this happen together. This is divine that put us together. Call it whatever you want if you're not a Christian. For all those that aren't listening, or that are listening that aren't Christians, and call it whatever you want. Karma, call it whatever you want. I don't care. But something brought us together, and it certainly wasn't a normal thing, that's for sure.
Yeah. Rob and I have known each other for 34 years. Yeah. I knew him early in his career before I was an RCMP officer. I actually rode with him and several other members while I was a civilian at Surrey Detachment before I joined the force. And then we lost contact for many years. But you're right, we've been brought back together. Mm-hmm. And I think if the God talk offends people, here's something else I'll throw out. We've seen, I think the three of us can safely, we can really be proud of the fact that we've seen the grace of God. God has been very graceful to us. And we've seen that through suffering and through hard times, that you build resilience and you build faith, and that God honors that. And I think that for all three of us is something that I hope that people can get that from the lesson. And I think from what we've been through and not having to learn it the hard way. And I would just encourage people, resiliency If you're struggling, if you're hurting, reach out to someone else, pick up a Bible, go to a church. There's going to be someone there that will be able to help you to get through that. And again, like for me, it's been God, and it's been a progressive journey. I'm far from perfect, and I'm a sinner, and I'm extremely imperfect, and we're going to get slings and arrows from people. And I think that, you see that a lot now in society. And the more that comes to me, that just reaffirms that I'm actually on the right path, because Christ suffered, and to be Christ-like and go through that, it's not something for me that it's no longer a millstone. It's a sign that I'm actually doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So
The Bible says Jesus learned obedience through his suffering, and that's okay. I'm okay with suffering. I'm not looking for rewards here on this earth. I'm looking for eternity, and that's fine. I'm not scared of death. If I have to go, then it's time to go. If God's done with me, then I hope I die in the same way that I'm trying to live. I hope I die in a way that glorifies God. I say I'm not a salesman for God, but make no mistake, these two will tell you, because they come out for dinner an awful lot with me, and they go to meetings with me, and I take every opportunity I can. And you've heard me yourself. In a room, I have no problem. If you let me talk about God, you're going to hear about him. No problem there, because of exactly what Chris said and what Rob has experienced and knows. We've all seen and felt and heard and known the grace of God. Not just his mercy, but his grace. We didn't get what we deserved. We all deserve death. And none of us have received that. None of us have deserved. And nobody listening has got what they actually deserve. So it's all by the grace of God that we have the ability to see a sunset today, that we have the ability to take a breath today. So take that for what it is, and whether people, want to laugh at us on that part, who cares? And the rest of that's what motivates and keeps our moral compass going. We have a community of people around us that care about us, and we care about one another. We've become very close. We've got angry together. We've cried together. We've gone through all of it, and it's and we've laughed, at Rob constantly because he's a Bruins fan. But that's okay. I mean, we'll forgive him for that because God forgave us. So but we have great guests coming on, and I really want to make that clear.
Yes,
we have some really good guests coming with some really good stories that have just as much to offer. The system itself, society. If people in the system, and I'm talking right from DOJ, not just RCMP, like I said, it's a holistic approach. If they would just listen to some lived experience, some of the suffering that people have gone through, some of it, obviously, we know that we've been the cause of our own demise in many many areas. That's life. Everybody causes their own grief in many areas. You spend money wrong, you got to suffer for that. Like that's normal in any human being. We all make mistakes, and but we learn from them. And all we're saying is, hey, let's all start learning from these people we want to bring on and we want to bring together. Let's all learn together. And hopefully you guys out there, the powers to be, will listen. They could have just listened in a room just like this, quietly. We could have just all talked and gave our experiences. You could have enacted the changes, and we would have gone way happy and lived our lives.
Right.
But that's not the way it happens.
But they're getting paid.
What's that?
But they're getting paid for every day they come to work to continue the lawfare and continue.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an industry. It
really is.
we just, in many cases, people just want to be able to move on with their lives with dignity, and I think that's being denied, and that's the denial of natural justice, and that has to end.
Right, and I didn't really mean slings and arrows. I meant that particular portion, because there's going to be people that made a fortune out of this. This is their career. They actually want to keep the system going, and those are the ones that I think are going to, you're going to catch their attention.
Yeah.
You want to speak out to them and actually call them to kind of change their ways and maybe fix the system.
Well, I mean, I'm very happy with them just coming and arresting me. That would be step one. If they would just arrest me so I could go and be in a criminal court, they've said over and over, and I don't mind saying this. I'm a little bit more bold probably with my where I'm going to go with things, because I don't really care. I turned 60 in a couple of weeks. I've said this before. I have more time behind me than I do ahead of me. I've had a heart attack. I've had cancer. I've had diabetes. I'm not thinking I'm around for a long time. So They've made claims against me that I've released confidential information, means and methods before. They like to write that in an affidavit. Okay, well then arrest me. They won't do it. Here I am. I've been in the room with you. Arrest me. You know why they won't do it? Because they don't want to have to take. And the discovery process is a little different in a criminal trial where my freedom's at stake than it is in a civil trial. So you know what? Arrest me if I'm doing something so wrong. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with let's. I'd like to go there for just 1 second because you've covered a lot of the Coates trial, the pastors that didn't close their churches down, things like that in Alberta. You've been a part of all that. I'm of the opinion that if I'm willing to break the law, and I think there's lots of times that it's okay for me to break the law if it's going against morals. The church is being shut down for me was a prime example. I would not have shut down the church if I was leading a church as a pastor. I led a fellowship group. We didn't shut down, but we met in homes anyway. I would never have shut down. I also, though, would have accepted the consequences because I believe that we are to honor and we're to keep the law in the sense that if you want to break it, know that there's a consequence to that. I wouldn't have made a spectacle of myself on a freeway. I wouldn't have made a spectacle of myself and been all dramatic. I would have put my hands up, put the handcuffs on and said, take me away and let's go to court and let's have my day in court where we can discuss this. And you know what? That's what I keep saying. Like if the morals have to dictate where we go, and he says things like natural, justice. So the things have to be morally right, and we have to be willing to stand up for that. And to the degree that they're not, they want to hide everything. You look at my civil case, for example, I begged for it to be an open court. Well, if you've got nothing to hide, I said you can redact all the means and methods, you can redact all the names, you can redact everything that would hurt anybody. I'm not looking to expose anything that would harm anybody. Then why are you still hiding it if I've agreed and said that? What is it that you could possibly have for a reason to not have an open court? I'm the one with the hit on me. So why are you hiding it? You're hiding it. And why are you dragging it on for 6 years? If you've got such a great case and I'm so wrong, it shouldn't take long to show me I'm wrong. It's because you're not seeking truth. If you were seeking truth, you would just do you know how long it took us to give them all our discovery documents? I mean, other than maybe a few things that came in as we went along. Like the first month, we put it all together and said, here you go, take it all. It took them till 2 weeks ago, I think, to tell us they've finally given that's the last of the discovery we think. 6 years to give us discovery? I mean, these are files of yours. Like, are you that disorganized? No, and that's the problem. We need to cut that. Taxpayers are paying for that. You wonder why your taxes are up? I just got I don't care what they do or say anywhere. I got an 181 page motion to stop my daughter's book and my book from being released. My daughter's book is basically a personal diary of a psychological experience of what it was like growing up in my home under me being a police informant. It says nothing about means and methods. The only thing that it ever said in it, and this is public knowledge anyway, there's one letter to Deputy Commissioner Cabana, which she insisted that it be redacted because she didn't want his name out there. He's a deputy commissioner. He was in charge of federal policing. He was in charge of the program. His name's allowed to be out there. She'd even wanted that redacted. Other than that, she said that witnesses that she flew in an airplane from one part of the country to another. Well, it's right on their website that they transfer witnesses in their planes. Like, it's on their website. But yet that was one of their reasons for thinking they needed to redact her book and stop it from being published. So what about our freedom of expression? Why is my daughter not allowed to have a voice? I don't care if you stop my books from being released, because I'll release it if I thought it was necessary. I don't think it's necessary. I don't need to release it. I don't care. I'm going to do a podcast. I'll talk about what I want to talk about. If it's right, it's right. I'm not going to talk about anything that will hurt anybody. Like I said, we've told you what guides us. We've told you what our purpose is. So they're worried about all the wrong things. And I don't think they're worried about it. I think it's just more games. here's 181 pages. Let's drain some more resources from you while you have to go deal with this motion now. Let's kill off some more time. Why? It's taxpayers' money. What do they care?
Just to be clear, it's not just the RCMP doing this. You look at the case of Helen Grews,
Right.
Yep.
Ottawa Police Service.
100%.
What's been done to her is atrocious, and every Canadian should be offended by the amount of money that's gone into the lawfare against her. We've got the Amy Ham case, College of, I believe it's the College of Nurses in British Columbia. We've got cases before Alberta Health Services. This kind of lawfare is being conducted across the country. So what's the common thing? It's the lawyers. It's not unique to the RCMP. It's not unique to one institution. And I think that's where, again, the taxpayers, we're supposed to be the clients. We're supposed to be the ones that this is being done for. When we're having this lawfare that is completely adverse to the interests of society, then it's time for it to be revisited, scrapped, reformed, whatever it needs to be. Whether there needs to be a commission or whatever, there needs to be some type of reform when the things like the CRCC and the complaints processes and the appeals process, it's a
And make no mistake, Chris said that he wasn't going to point finger. Rob said he won't point fingers. Chris said he won't name names. I will be pointing fingers and naming names, and I'm okay with that. And if they think I'm going to do something, they'll always know ahead of time that I'll never do it without any accountability. And if they tell me it's not wise, I'll take their advice. I'm not a loose cannon, and I'm not out to hurt anybody. But I'm not scared to name names and say what needs to be fixed.
I have no doubt that there are people concerned about the three of us being here. This is probably going to be watched by people in headquarters in Vancouver and in Ottawa and various places, the undercover program. But it's predictable as well. I think the narrative that we're loose cannons, the narrative that we're a danger, the narrative that we're a threat somehow, it's the same narrative that was that happened with Bill Miker's case and the people associated to him with regards to national security. They create the problem, and then they try to find the evidence to support the narrative that they've advanced. Before I was discharged from the RCMP, I was advocating for mental health. I was pointing out where there was issues, and I predicted backlash. I predicted that there would be fallout and consequences for me, and sure enough, they came. So what I would say to those people, wherever they are, is, have your powder dry.
Yeah.
If you're going to make accusations against us, have your powder dry, because we are moral, ethical, guided by a faith. And if you have an issue with us, you know where to reach us. Phone us. If there's something that you feel we're crossing the boundaries, tell us, and we'll have that conversation. But that's not the intent. We're not trying to destroy any institutions. We're not trying to bring the administration of justice into disrepute. We're trying to fix things, and we're doing it from a place of integrity and honesty. And I think that's important to recognize. And I really hope Helen Grews, Amy Ham, as these other things start to come out, Sean Hartman, there's some really big things in this country that need to be addressed with honesty, with integrity, and stop hiding things through lawfare. That's the number one thing that needs to end.
I think too, if you're gonna sit up in your, and if we're pointing to them, I just have to say it on my social media. We all know how well they go through that. I've seen that in my litigation very clearly, that they scrub my media like they're looking for gold. I don't know why. It's not that interesting. Like I get up and have a coffee and think, what's on my mind today, and put it out there, and they think it's just something to. But make no mistake about it. You want to be holier than thou. Just be careful you don't have skeletons in your closet when you come at me, because I will spend all my time and all my effort and all my resources finding your skeletons too. Like, don't come at me in an adversarial way. I'm not looking to be adversarial. That's just not me. But I am looking for truth, and I am bold enough to speak it. I'm not prideful. I'm confident. I'm confident in what I'm speaking about. I don't speak about things I don't understand. That's why when they talk about policing, I shut up. And when they talk, well, Rob, I can't say that about Rob. I guess when I talk with the Hells Angels and drugs and killing, Rob will speak into that one a little bit too, and he's got glimpses. But listen, I say it to say that there's a lot of people up there who think they are better than everybody. And I'm talking about NHQ, and they know it. And I'm talking about the Department of Justice, and they know it. You think you're better, and you think you fool us, and you think that you've conned us, and you think you play these games and that we don't see it. Good God, we all worked undercover. You don't think we have discernment? You don't think we don't know the games you're playing? I say in one of my books, a witness protection handler, coordinator from Saskatchewan, from F Division, once said, and I've seen it now in my disclosure. So not only did he say it to my wife when he first met her, he said that, so now I now know it was him, even though he's redacted in the documents. He said I was the most manipulative bastard he ever met. And I thought, I don't know how to take that. I don't know if it's a compliment. They trained me. I mean, they took me at 15 and they guided my life, and I've learned from them. So I don't know if that's good or bad, but I guess be careful I don't use it back on you.
Absolutely. And Rob, I'm looking forward to catching your first episode and learning a little bit more about you. You're definitely in some great company here. And I think this is something that Canada, US, especially with Epstein and other things that are going on, we need the law enforcement to be honest, accountable, maybe not so transparent, but definitely accountable, and maybe some restitution as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really looking forward to your first episode. When is the first episode?
I think we've decided on November 4th. I think we're trying to coincide it with a couple other things that are going to happen, and we kind of like to come out with a bang. So watch for the explosion.
In your side, Rob?
Well, I'm very excited just to be a part of this, and for me, coming out of prison, this has been a tremendous opportunity for me, and there are things that are going to be revealed fairly soon. So yeah, like I'm just very grateful for the opportunity to be a part of this.
First the RCMP, then Hell's Angels, now podcaster. So good luck to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Author. Well, gentlemen, I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm sure we can have more. And after you get started, let's do something again and make sure that we stay in touch, because I think you're absolutely going to do something very special here in Canada. And if they're worried, then you're doing it right.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Any last words there, Chris?
No,
well,
it's just an honor for you to have us here today, and thank you. And yeah, looking forward to doing more with these gentlemen and just continuing a walk of honesty, integrity, all the things that the institution should be doing. But we know that we're doing that individually and together. So,
and if you ruffle some more feathers or Paul, then you're doing something right.
I think so, and I really hope that they just watch and learn from what we want to display. I mean, we all three of us get a little excited at times and a little overamped. We all have personal wounds from this, so we're not immune to the fact that we've all been hurt. We know that, and we try to take that into consideration. So if we do go off the rails a little bit sometimes, I hope everybody knows we are really grounded in what we say we're grounded in, and I hope that we display that. And as usual, thank you, Jason Needlake. You're an excellent interviewer, and you have a genuine inquisitiveness that I love about this show. So I hope you continue, and it continues to do great.
I appreciate it a lot, and there's a lot of work to do. Detective Helen Gruz, the Cootsman, you gentlemen, Donald Bass, Vincent Gersey, etc. There's a lot going on, and I think Canada's on the cusp of something very, very great. So thank you all for being here today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. And on that note, make sure you subscribe and follow these gentlemen. ObsceneReality.com, November 4th-ish. Pay attention and stay tuned to it. Make sure you follow and check these guys out. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.